What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, today I've got for you one of the most outlandish and downright idiotic entitled people stories that I've ever come across. And I know I say that a lot, but trust me, when we get into this story, you will understand what I'm saying. It's just insane. Before we do, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you are new. We're closing in on 600,000 subscribers, just a couple of hundred away at the time of recording, so that'd be very much appreciated. And also, if you want to submit your own stories to me to have the chance of me reading them out in one of these episodes, then I've created a new email address. If you've got your own story and you want me to read it, go into the description down below, click on the mailto link and send me a story. And if it's good enough, if it's interesting, if it's well written, I'll read it in the next episode. All right, let's get into this truly unbelievable first story. My small town is fighting over Chinese food. This is entitled people on the large scale, and it's too hilarious not to share. I live in a small town with a population of 7,000 roughly, and everyone is currently divided over a Chinese restaurant. It's been in the local news and Australia's national news. That's how crazy people are getting. Okay, after this, I'm definitely going to look that up. That's unreal. Back in May of this year, a local Chinese restaurant owner informed the local club he was renting kitchen space from that he wanted to retire, and he gave them his resignation, stating his last operating day would be the end of June. Cue the local Karens and Kevins en masse. One local, who we will call Big Kevin, teamed up with another local we will call Mega Karen, and they decided they were going to protest against the closing and force the club to keep the restaurant open. This poor man has been running the restaurant for 30 years without break and just wanted to retire peacefully. But no. Mega Karen started a petition while Big Kevin organized a protest about the closing down of a Chinese restaurant. Oh my god, that's unbelievable. Now, our third major player in this we shall call the Wicked Witch. The Wicked Witch, working in the shadows, starts leaking to the local paper that said restaurant owner is being forced out by the club. A false allegation. The club gives their first and only statement about the situation, stating that the restaurant owner retired and even produced his retirement paperwork for proof. At this point, the national news comes into it and does an interview with the restaurant owner, who states on the news that he just wants to retire. You would think that would be the end of it, but no. Mega Karen gets 1,200 or so signatures on her petition, which she hands to the club. 1,200 people have signed saying they do not want to let this man retire and that he must continue making Chinese food. Okay, the club's lawyer though calls it invalid due to over 900 of the signatures not being filled in properly. Right, okay, that's signature, printed name and club membership number or phone number that's needed by each person to make it valid. Or the same person signed multiple petition slots. So Mega Karen starts a new petition which only gets 74 signatures. It makes sense now. Meanwhile, Big Kevin organizes a protest, but he doesn't show up for it, and nor does anyone else. The club then hosts a meeting for all club members of the general public, and the club's board to discuss what is going on. But again, for all the complaints, no one actually shows up. Now Mega Karen and Big Kevin are demanding that a new meeting be held, the club's general manager be fired, and the club's board be disbanded and a new board elected. The Wicked Witch then once again goes to the newspaper with a statement from the restaurant owner. The restaurant has now been closed for over a month and states that now that the club has renovated the restaurant and has plans to start a new one, they, the old restaurant, would consider renting the space again. Before you question why the space wasn't renovated before this point, it was part of the Chinese restaurant's agreement that they would maintain and renovate the space as they saw fit, as stated by the club in their public statement. And she tells the paper that the whole reason the Chinese restaurant left wasn't because they wanted to retire, but because their rent increased from the $285 a week they've paid for 28 years to $385 a week last year, and then $485 a week this year for a restaurant space, when other local restaurants are paying $2,500 a week plus for the same or smaller places. So Big Kevin, Mega Karen, and a ton of other locals were all shocked at the cost of rent, which they are all now saying should have been kept at the $285 to encourage the restaurant to stay, even though it meant likely closing the club since they were struggling to afford running costs. The club even broke down their running costs to show the members and locals how expensive it is to keep the place open, but still not good enough. I can't with this town anymore. There we go. Now, I've done a little bit of digging there, and unfortunately, I can't find any sort of news article about this. But I do believe OP. So if you guys want to do some extensive digging of your own to potentially find out whether or not, this has had some articles written about it. I mean, if it's made national news, you'd imagine it has done, right? Then feel free and drop a comment down below letting me know if you found something and link to an article. But yeah, I can't find anything in myself. But one thing that is really funny, and just having a look through the comments, is that OP has said in the comments down below that what makes this all the more ridiculous is that there is another Chinese restaurant that is pretty popular, literally just around the corner. But no, there has to be a petition made about this one in particular. It's crazy. I don't think I've ever seen this level of fuss about a restaurant closing down. Now, don't get me wrong. When your favorite restaurant closes down, it's gutting. It is. It really is. I've been there. But to stop or try and force a petition to stop somebody from retiring is insane. I feel like this is a pretty apt story given what's gone on in the last week or so with the death of one of the most famous men and most iconic individuals potentially on the internet ever. That is succulent Chinese mealman himself. He probably would have protested, whereas no one else in this story did. He would have been the man to do it. Rest in peace. Okay, now for our second Entitled People story. Entitled People humbled at passport control. I think this is the first time in a long time that I saw a group of people act entitled. They were yelled at by other people in line, and they actually listened. I was waiting in the passport line in Iceland, where a lot of flights land very early in the morning, and I had a short layover, I think around an hour, before connecting to a new flight. Me and so many others got off our flight that landed at 6:30 a.m. We waited in passport control and we had to make a connecting flight taking off at 7:20. The non-EU side of the passport line had nearly 200 people waiting in it, and it was going about as fast as it could. So slow, and that's just the reality of it. At 6:30 a.m, most people took their tiredness and knew the best bet was to just wait in line and hope the flight waits for most of its passengers. Or just quietly accept that connection isn't going to happen. Except for one family. Back of the line, one man goes nearly to the front and pesters this half-awake 20-year-old kid about cutting in front of him because his flight is leaving soon. You don't say, everyone's is. The kid says, sure, I don't blame him, it's too early to argue. The line cutter waves to the back and shouts, he said we can go in front of him. And 6 other entitled folks, his family, I presume, they were all dressed in matching tropical vacation clothes, come striding their way up to the spot in the front. Cue uproar from the whole line. What do you think you're doing? Go to the back. Go back to where you were. You aren't special. The line cutter tried to reason his way and say, but we have a connection that leaves at 7:30. And the resounding, we all do too, from the rest of the line was poetic. It was gratifying in real time to see the man look around and see 200 people in the exact same situation as him and that he was not special. He finally, sheepishly waved his family back to go back to his old spot at the back of the line. I finally made it through passport control and made it to my flight at around 7:10. And my EU partner was able to get to the gate quicker, EU speedy line perks, and begged them to hold the gate and wait for me there, and I was one of the last ones on the flight. I was in the front third of the passport line while the line cutters were way behind me, so I don't know if they made their flight or not, but at least it was some morning entertainment. Now, interestingly, the same sort of thing as what's happened in this story happened to me not too long ago. I was flying out of an airport and it was very busy. It was so early in the morning. I was with my mates. We were knackered going to, where were we going? We were going to Nice, actually, in France. A lovely place. And what happened was I kind of just let them through, because I didn't really care. And also we were early for our flight compared to other people that were scrambling to get through. This was like through security and stuff. It wasn't even passport control, weren't even there yet. Now, was it annoying? Yeah, it was. But would I actually genuinely have said like, no, stop? Like, I'm going to go through as well. We're all in the same predicament. I actually think I would if I was in the same predicament, because it is extremely annoying. So like if I had a flight that I also had to make, now I wasn't in a rush because I'm sensible with my time, especially when it comes to flying, I probably would have done the same thing. But yeah, I mean, I just didn't really care enough to get into any sort of confrontation. So I was just like, yeah, go through, don't really mind. But yeah, in this situation where everybody is queuing up for the same exact thing, everyone knows they're late, everyone's got connecting flights to go through, don't do this. Although I will say, it's actually one of the first times that I can remember in which an entitled person, or at least an entitled group, has said, actually, yeah, you know what, we're wrong. Or maybe they don't think they're wrong, but they've backed down, is what I'm trying to say. How often do you see that? Remember the story the other day where the guy sat down at a table in a restaurant outside with his girlfriend or wife, and she was just shocked because there was a queue for tables and seats, but he was like, no, I'm sitting here, I'm doing this. Everyone said to him, you're wrong, but he didn't care. That is kind of what I'd expect to happen here, but no, didn't happen. I guess kind of respect, but also like, how are you so oblivious that you didn't realize that everyone was getting on the same flight? It's probably pretty obvious, or that everyone was in a rush or had connecting flights. I don't know. It's not really a positive thing ultimately. But yeah, let's carry on. Now moving on to our third story. Angry boomer demands I bend over backwards to accommodate his hatred of technology. I work retail, and this guy bought something online and had it delivered. After receiving it, he decided he didn't want it anymore, so he asked to return it for a refund. I said, sure, no problem, just send it back with the returns form found on our website and ship it back to us. He then got super angry that he had to print off a form. Like most people my age, I don't have a freaking printer. So I said, okay, fine, don't print out the form, just include a handwritten note and ship it back to us. And how am I supposed to do that? By taking it to the post office? And what? You're expecting me to pay for shipping? Well, it's your choice to send it back. So, back in my day, stores provided a little something called customer service. I expect to receive that from you as well. Annoyed at the entitlement, but also just exhausted of the BS, I agreed to provide a return label. I asked him to move the conversation to email though, since I can't provide him a return label over the phone. So he sent his email, rehashed all his nonsense from the phone call, and I replied with this. I can provide you a return label, but you need to be able to print it off so you can attach it to the item. That was 2 months ago, and he never replied to that email. Today, he called me back. Hi, it's Bob. Remember me? Sorry, Bob, but I speak to many people every day. You'll need to refresh my memory. And with that, he was fuming again. It was like me not remembering him was the worst sort of insult. He rehashed everything again, and then it all came flooding back. My immediate thought was, didn't this happen months ago? And I was right, it did. I checked the email chain and I sent my email on June the 16th. He again complained about having to ship it back himself and having to have access to a printer, but I just said, because I was annoyed, that's the way the world works now. I can't change that. So he said, I'm sick of this. I've had enough of this for today. I'll call back later. Then he hung up. I was hoping that would be the last of him for another 2 months, but no, he replied to my email from 2 months ago within an hour. He again started complaining about how we have made this difficult for him and that we should make accommodations for people that don't have a printer. I replied saying, we can provide you with a PDF of the label, and if you don't have a printer, then you could ask a friend or a relative or even the post office to print it for you. Now, here is the kicker, the absolute cherry on top of his entitlement. This is your problem to fix, not mine. Your store has set up a system that requires the use of a printer without any consideration for people that are too old to use modern technology. I will not go out of my way to fix a problem that you created. You need to tell the courier to print the label themselves and have them deliver the label to my house. Wow, I haven't replied yet, but there are so many things I would like to say. Firstly, this is our system? Welcome to the 21st freaking century, you decrepit C-word. It's sentences like that, by the way, guys, that make me really want to change the fact that I don't swear on this channel. Just such a beautiful sentence. But yeah, can't read it. Obviously, got to censor it, but wow, so good. Anyway, we didn't invent the need for a printer. Couriers are the ones that generate the PDFs, not us, but that is the easiest way to do it. Your refusal to understand that does not make you right. Secondly, this is definitely a you problem. I understand not owning your own printer, because I don't own one either, but you could easily take the PDF to a friend or a family member that does have one. Even if you don't have friends, shocking, or a family, you could take the item to the post office and ask them to print the label and stick it on the frickin' parcel, but no, you have such a vendetta against technology that you refuse to partake in it. It's almost as if you think finding a printer somehow enables this behavior, and your refusal to use a printer is an act of defiance meant to break us from our reliance on technology so we can go back to a simpler time. Well, buddy, I've had enough. Either pay to ship it back yourself or forget about your refund. You don't want to enable our reliance on technology, that's fine, but I don't want to enable your entitlement. So if this is our stalemate, so be it. We don't lose anything. You're the one that wants to return it, all because you changed your mind. So the next move is yours. Wow, that last paragraph was phenomenal. And I think it sounds like the start of a genuine superhero movie, or just like a hero versus villain movie. And I want to see it, guys. I don't know about you, but I want to see it. See, this right here is why I will try my hardest in my life to never have to work in a sort of job where, and I'm not like trashing on these sort of jobs, by the way. People that do it are extremely good at it a lot of the time. But yeah, customer service, I just do not think I have the sort of temperament to do well in this at all. I think I just get like so angry or annoyed at just idiots like this. To be fair to OP, like, you've shown pretty great patience there. And I know eventually you've got annoyed and said the right thing, in my opinion, like actually been hard and said, nah, come on, you're taking the mick here. But I just couldn't deal with this sort of stuff. If you guys work in customer service, let me know down below. How often does this sort of stuff happen to you where you're just like, I cannot believe how ridiculous the person that I'm speaking to on the other end of the line is. And like, what are they doing? How dumb are they? Because this is just ridiculous. Yes, this man clearly does just have a vendetta against technology, but he's taking it out on you. You don't deserve that, but you dealt with it well. Now for our final Entitled People story of this episode. Karen angry that I snapped at her kid after said kid screamed into my ear. So this happened a few years ago at a major airport in the US. I worked as a pilot for an airline, and in the course of my duties, I ride our aircraft to and from home to our crew base. I often did this out of uniform, with my only identifying feature being my work ID or lanyard. My last flight before time off put us on the ground around noon. Being off duty, I immediately changed out of my uniform and took a seat from the gate where my flight home would depart from. Behind me, there was a rambunctious child whom was using the seats as her personal playground and randomly squealing and screaming while doing so. While this is annoying and the squeals are like nails on a chalkboard to me, it is the reality of things. I just ignore it and I browse through my tablet. The next thing I know, I catch a full scream into my ear. I turn my head and the kid is literally a couple of centimeters from my face and is hanging off the back of my chair. I immediately snapped at the kid. Do not scream into my ear. That is when the Karen mother, who was just letting this happen, loses her head. She darts up, standing over the seat behind me, yelling at me, "Don't you yell at my kid! How dare you!" The kid, meanwhile, has a shocked look, but settles down or goes silent. Karen, though, continues on, trying to goad me into arguing with her and doing everything but actually putting hands on me to escalate this into a physical fight. She even tries to encourage her kid to scream again, to which the kid just sat there quietly. I initially stare at her for a few seconds, then I went back to ignoring her and the situation and just go back to looking at my tablet. She continues having a meltdown for 10 minutes before the man with her collected her, the kid, their things and went elsewhere. I feel bad for the kid, as I cannot see her future ending well with that sort of guidance. It was also a shame that the mother flipped, as I likely would have given the kid wings that my company supplies us with after the kid calmed down. Well, hopefully after this lady has learned that if she doesn't discipline her kid for doing stuff that is just downright rude and obnoxious and just wrong, then somebody else eventually will. Doesn't necessarily mean that it had to be you in this situation, but I'm sure this has happened a lot of the time in the past. And it needs someone like you to eventually make her realize what is she doing as a parent? How can you be enabling this sort of stuff? Again, as I always say, with children that are extremely young, or even just young, I don't blame them. You can't really blame a kid for going mental, but you can blame a parent for not parenting. Simple as that. And yeah, you know what? Fair play for shouting at the kid. Probably just shocked her. Something that her mum has clearly never done. She's probably never heard the words "stop doing that" in her life. Crazy, but yeah, good job. Anyway, that is going to do it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you want more right away, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit this button over here, and watch some more right here. If you're on podcast platform, link down below. Come over to YouTube and see my lovely face.